Hello, brothers and sisters. Today starts our third part in our series where I wanted to read First Maccabees 3, continuing on with Maccabees. Hopefully, this can be a blessing to you guys and you can learn some stuff and hear some out of a less common book about the Bible that people don't hear as much here. First Maccabees 3:1. Then his son Judas, who was called Maccabeus, took command in his place. All of his brothers who had joined his father helped him, and then gladly fought for Israel. He extended the glory of his people. Like a giant, he put on his breastplate, and he bound his armor of war and waged battles, protecting the camp by his sword. He was like a lion in his deeds, like a lion cub roaring for prey. He searched out and pursued those who broke the law. He burned those who troubled his people. Lawbreakers shrank off fear of him, and all evildoers were confounded. And deliverance prospered by his hand. He embittered many kings, but he made Jacob glad by his deeds, and his memory was blessed forever. He went through the cities of Judea and destroyed the ungodly of the land. Thus he was turned away any wrath from Israel. He was renowned to the ends of the earth, and he gathered those who were perishing. Apollonius now gathered together Gentiles and a large force from Samaria to fight against Israel. When Judas learned of it, he went out and met him, where he defeated and killed him. Many were wounded and fell, and the rest fled. Then they seized their spoils, and Judas took the sword of Apollonius and used it in the battle for the rest of his life. When Sirron, the commander of the Syrian army, heard that Judas had gathered a large company, including a body of faithful soldiers who stayed with him and went out to battle, he said, "I will make a name for myself and win honor in the kingdom. I'll make war on Judas and his companions who score the king's command." Once again, a strong army of godless men went up to help him and take vengeance on the Israelites. When he approached, the wind blows my page. Silly wind. It didn't want me to read it. We're at 3, so it blew it 2 pages. He said, "I'll make a name for myself and win honor in the kingdom. I'll make war on Judas and his companions who scorn the king's command." Once again, a strong army of godless men went up with him to help him and take vengeance on the Israelites. When he approached the ascent of Beth Horon, Judas went out to meet him with a small company. But then they saw the army coming to meet him. They said to Judas, "How can we, few as we are, fight against a great and strong multitude? And we're faint, for we haven't eaten anything today." Eaten nothing today. Judas replied, "It is easy for many to be hemmed in by a few. For the sight of heaven there is no difference between saving by many or by few. It is not on the size of the army that the victory of the battle depends on, but the strength that comes from heaven. They come against us in insolence and lawlessness to destroy our wives and our children, and to despoil us. But we fight our lives and our laws. He himself will crush them before us, and as for you, do not be afraid of them." When he finished speaking, he rushed suddenly against Sirron and his army, and they were crushed before him. They pursued him down in the desert of Beth Horon to the plain. 800 of them fell, and the rest fled into the land of the Philistines. Then Judas and his brothers began to be feared, and terror fell on all the Gentiles around him. His fame reached the king, and the Gentiles talked of the battle of Judas. And when King Antiochus heard these reports, he was greatly angered, and he sent and gathered the forces of his kingdom and a very strong army. He opened his coffers and gave a year's pay to his forces and ordered them to be ready for any need. Then he saw the money in the treasury was exhausted, and the revenues from the country were small because of the dissension and disaster he had caused the land by abolishing the laws that had existed from the earliest days. He feared that he might not have such funds as he had before his expenses and the gifts that he used to give more lavishly than the preceding kings. He was greatly perplexed in the mind and determined to go to Persia and collect revenues of the regions and raise a large fund. He left Lysias, a distinguished man of royal lineage, in charge of the king's affairs from the river Euphrates to the borders of Egypt. Lysias was also to take care of his son. Thus, take care of his son, and Antiochus, and returned. And he turned over to Lysias and half his force, and the elephants gave him orders all about that he wanted done. As for the residents of Judea and Jerusalem, Lysias was to send a force against them and wipe out and destroy the strength of Israel and the remnant of Jerusalem. He was to banish the memory of them from the place, settle aliens in their territory, and distribute their land by lot. Then the king took the remaining half of his forces and left Antioch, the capital, in the 147th year. He crossed the Euphrates River and went through the upper provinces. Lysias chose Ptolemy, the son of Dormenes, and Nicanor and Gorgias, able men among the friends of the king, and sent them 40,000 infantry and 7,000 cavalry to go into the land of Judea and destroy it, as the king had commanded. So they set out their entire force, and when they arrived at the encampment near Emmaus in the plain, when the traders of the region heard what was said to them, they took the silver and gold in immense amounts and fetters, and went to the camp to get the Israelites for slaves. And the forces from Syria and the land of the Philistines joined them. Now Judas and his brothers saw the misfortune had increased, and that the forces were encamped in their territory. They also learned that the king had commanded to be done with the people because of the people to cause their final destruction. But they said to one another, "Let us restore the ruins of our people and fight for our people in the sanctuary." So the congregation is assembled and ready for battle, and then pray to ask for mercy and compassion. Jerusalem was inhabited like a wilderness. Not one of her children went in and out. The sanctuary was trampled down, and the aliens held the citadel. It was a lodging place for the Gentiles. Joy was taken from Jacob, and the flute harp ceased to play. Then they gathered together and went to Mizpah, opposite of Jerusalem, because Israel formerly had a place of prayer in Mizpah. They fasted that day and put on sackcloth and sprinkled ashes on their heads and tore their clothes. And they opened the book of the law to inquire those matters which the Gentiles consulted the images of their God. They also brought the vestments of the priesthood and the first fruits and the tithes, and they stirred up the Nazarites who had completed their day. The Nazarites, say they were the ones that were separated and consecrated, so they have the Nazarite vow. I wanted to see what that said about them. Who had completed their days and cried out to heaven, "What should we do with these? Where shall you take them? Your sanctuary is trampled down and profaned. Your priests mourn in humiliation. Here are the Gentiles assembled against us to destroy us. You know what they have plotted against us, and how will we be able to withstand them if you don't help us?" Then sounded the trumpets and gave a large shout. After Judas appointed the leaders of the people in the charge of the thousands and the hundreds and the fifties and the tens, those who were building the houses or about to be married, or planting a vineyard, or faint-hearted, he told to go home again in accordance to the law. And then when the army marched out and encamped to the south of Emmaus, Judas said, "Arm yourselves and be courageous. Be ready in the morning to fight with the Gentiles who have assembled against us to destroy our sanctuary. It is better for us to die in battle than see the misfortunes of our nation and our sanctuary. But as it'll be in heaven, as in heaven may it so be, so shall he do." And that was First Maccabees 3. Thank you for listening. Hope you have a good day. I'll follow up and continue reading Maccabees. Hopefully this is something that brings some interesting things to people, some new insights, and maybe some things you haven't heard before, so you might be interested in learning some more things and hearing some more things about this, like how the Greeks invaded the Israelites and stopped, and there was a lot of Gentile pushes there. I think that reveals a lot of things that not everybody expects, and what exactly could be part of the things, like how we have so many Jewish, Gentile, and Greek traditions and nowadays. Thank you for listening. Please like it if you liked it, and subscribe if you would like to hear more. Have a great day, and God bless.